Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well, and today we're recovering the ground on Boohoo because there's been a little bit more movement in the stock, and I thought I'd cover this. I can see a few notifications coming through about questions about Boohoo, so I thought I'd try cover some of the questions that were coming into the comment section of yesterday's video. As always guys, smash that like button and get the video out there on the YouTube algorithm. But Boohoo, obviously the stock is now tanking. The stock is down about 50% right now as we're recording this video. It's about 11 AM right now, so by the time it gets live at 5 PM and I've edited it out, I have no idea where the stock might be at. So I'm just going to say right now, 11 o'clock, the stock's around about 220-ish right now. But yeah, by the time I've uploaded it, I have no idea where the stock will be. But the fundamentals that I'm going to put into this video will be exactly the same, whether the stock's gone down another 10% or gone up another 10%. And I'm going to try help some of you guys that have a lot of questions. So first of all, I'm going to say once again, this is why you need to have cash. If you don't hold cash in your portfolio, guys, learn from this. You know, opportunities will come, and they'll come when you're not expecting it. Literally in 24 hours, like literally, you know, Thursday, Friday, there could be another one of these Boohoo scenarios where another company, a great company that sells off, might just drop out of nowhere, and if you don't have the cash available, you can't go buy it. And that's really important, why I'm always a big believer, hold at least 10 to 30% cash in your portfolio. I like to be a little bit more to the higher end, but you need to at least have some cash. What happens if the whole stock market crashes again? What happens if there's another pandemic? Have you got the money to go buy your stocks? Really important, guys. So that's one thing that I am going to say. Second thing, I've seen a few people in the comment section like panicking about prices. And the main thing, especially if you're long-term investing, don't get caught up in the short term, averaging your positions. Okay, that's why I always say, like, if I see a company for sale, I'm always not buying the full company at once. I'm always buying a little bit, maybe like 50% of the company. And then after, well, 50% is normally the most I would buy at once. But then if the stock market, or if the stock goes down another 10%, I buy a bit more, 20% I buy a bit more, 30% buy a bit more, and it gives you a lot more room to get a better price on that company. Sometimes it don't work like that. Sometimes you buy it goes up, and you know you didn't get the position size you wanted, but you've hit a home run on the first strike, which is a positive, you know. Obviously, ideally, you know, if it went down, it would have been a better scenario, but like I say, it's a 50-50 shot if it goes up or down in the short term, and you want to cover that 50% and make sure you've got it covered in case that happens. So I think yesterday I said on the video my averaging price was something like 274, something around that range, but I've now been buying a lot more again today. I brought my averaging price now down to 242, which is pretty good. Well, at 200 right now, obviously that's really cheap. I don't know if it will go below 200, but if it does, then I'll start buying a little bit more from there. But I'm just going to hold off a little bit now, and same again, if it does start dropping a bit more, then I will go buy. Now when we look at the stock chart, you can see how insane this drop is. You know, we're back at like lows of the pandemic, which is crazy because everyone that bought in them lows of the pandemic are now down on the position. And you know, when I bought in on the first time and I sold, this is exactly why I do it. You know, it goes up too quick, you know, it comes back, and you never know what happens. It's good to take some profit off the table. And now we're back down at like nearly the lows of the pandemic. So everyone that bought in there is pretty much down on position. I think everyone that invested before the pandemic for like the last year, they're down on the positions as well. So there's quite a few people that have, you know, gone down on your positions. But when you look at that low of the pandemic, there's a lot of hard buyers in there that will hold that company, because, you know, at 200, people held that company in the pandemic. And I'm sure with this this subcontractor issue that's going on right now, I don't think that will take it below the 200. So I think 200 is a very hard point right there. I think that when you look at 200, you know, it wasn't broken by the pandemic, so I reckon with this new story it could hold there. I think at one point it did go down to maybe 180-ish, but I think 200 is a good hold point right now for Boohoo. So I'll be pretty confident it don't break below that. You know, it could break below that, but it does seem like a very strong point. You know, peak of a pandemic, and it held that point, so that's a good point to be looking at. I also got a lot of messages about people panicking on the positions, like, do I sell? Do I set a sell limit? And if you guys are like watching me on YouTube, then you're on like the wrong channel. Like in this channel, it's all about long-term investing. buying great companies at cheap prices, holding them for 2 to 5 years and making 100% return on them. That's the aim of the channel. If you're in here and you're going down 10% and you're panicking and you're selling out, if you're buying a company and then selling it out a week later, maybe a day later, and you make it 10%, it's not the channel for you guys. You need to go watch someone else. I'm here to buy stocks at cheap prices and make them, invest in them and hold for 2 to 5 years, 100% return. That's the aim. That's what I've done previously on countless amount of stocks in the the 4 or 5 years I've been in the stock market. That's what I've always done, and that's always my target. And you guys that have been here for the long term, you guys have seen the stocks that I've sold for massive gains on the channel, and that's what this channel's about. If you're getting caught up in like 10% gains, this isn't the channel for you. You're a short-term trader, you're a day trader. I hold for the long term. Now, I'm not saying that I hold all my stocks for 2 to 5 years. Sometimes I don't hold them for 2 years. Sometimes Boohoo, like the first time, I held that for like 2 months and it went up 85%. And sometimes you can hit that home run earlier than 2 years, and if you do, it's a bonus. You take it, you go to the next one. Sometimes you do beat the 2-year mark, and it's always great when you do that, but every time I invest into a company, I am willing to hold it for the long term. So Boohoo itself is, when we look at the company, it's a great company, massively sold off, and 50% sold off is massive. Like, when you think about 50%, it's a big number, and when you think about the stock itself, it has to be something very serious, in my opinion, for a company to drop 50%. And I think when we get back to this story and we look into the company and how much does this story obviously affect the company, and is it 50% worthy? In my opinion, it's not. So for you guys that don't know what's going on right now, basically one of the suppliers is being investigated because apparently it was paying £3.50 an hour to its workers, which is obviously below the minimum wage, and also it wasn't following like social distancing guidelines, obviously putting the workers at threat of contracting the virus. So obviously that's not a great situation. Now, the big thing to take from this is that it is the supplier, it is not Boohoo. So obviously Boohoo takes the headlines because Boohoo is the one that will sell the headlines. Also, you'll see a lot of short sellers. I saw a few people posting about Shadowfall shorting the stock, but obviously they're going to be pushing this story absolutely huge because it's in their benefit. They want the stock to go down. They're going to be pushing these headlines. A lot of these articles have them with a quote in. They're going to be all over this because they're set to gain a lot of money from it. So obviously there's going to be a lot of negative content out there about Boohoo, and they're the ones that sell the headlines in general. But when you look at the situation that it is the supplier, this isn't Boohoo. Now, if this was Boohoo, then we would have big, massive problems, and I would be treating the situation a lot differently. But because it's a supplier, this isn't really going to affect Boohoo that much financially. They're not going to get fined for it. They're probably going to get a slap on the wrist saying, this was your supplier and you should be looking into them a little bit more. And they'll probably get a good telling off. But at the end of the day, it's a supplier. It's not their company. Obviously, we're still waiting for the investigation to come out to, is it actually their supplier? Was it a supplier sending some of the work to another supplier? We don't fully know the story, but at the end of the day, we do know that it's not Boohoo, it is a supplier. And Boohoo have committed 10 million into this investigation to see what's going out there. Obviously, 10 million isn't a massive thing for Boohoo in general because they've got 250 million on the balance sheet. I wish everything was that easy to just pay something out like that. But that's another benefit of the company, the great balance sheet, just be able to do that. But overall, it's going to be fine. And people say, obviously it's a big deal, but you look at a company like Nike, and Nike have been guilty of, the sweatshops for 40 years, and they're still doing it today. Nike are guilty to it for 40 years, and Boohoo got telling off for this one time. But there's a lot of companies out there, guys, that are not a clean companies that are still doing this, and it's well known. And you look at how successful they've been. Don't think Boohoo are the only guilty ones around in this sort of industry. Now, obviously there has been a few partners suspended, so you've got like ASOS and Amazon, them sort of partners, and I think overall they make like something like 8% of the revenue. Obviously, I think from my point of view, once this investigation is done, I think that it will probably they'll probably list the products again. So I you know, I think it's unfair to ban a company like Boohoo when it's a supplier's fault. You know, you look at Amazon, you know, how many sellers do they have on there? I bet one of their sellers has been guilty of doing something completely wrong. Maybe, you know, frauding something, frauding the products, selling fake products. And then, you know, do Amazon then ban every single seller? It's one of those guys, you know. I think Boohoo have been a bit unfairly treated here, but it makes a big, massive buying opportunity in a company like this in general. And I think like with the ASOS, I think, you know, you give it 3 months. I expect probably the products to be back on there, and generally in the stock's point of view, I think, you know, a lot of this will be blown over in 3 months. Something else will take the headlines, and you got to remember Boohoo is going to have a fantastic Q2. I think their online sales are going to be absolutely insane. So I think, you know, this company is going to have a Q2, which will then probably, you know, turn the tide a little bit and bring some buyers back into the company. So that's going to be a positive for the company in general. And I've also seen a few people saying like potentially the profit margins can get hurt now because they won't be able to, you know, pay as cheap as they do for the suppliers. But yeah, potentially they might hurt the profit margins, but you know, not by much. You know, there's a lot of factories out there that will take this contract on, and I reckon they won't want much more money for it. So I don't think the actual like profit margin will get hurt that much. I think that there'll be plenty of other suppliers out there, but that will be willing to do the prices that they're currently paying as well. Maybe even in the UK, maybe even internationally. You know, there's a lot of people out there that can go to. So it might hurt them slightly, but I wouldn't expect it that much if I'm being honest overall. Like I say, revenue might get hurt slightly, but I mean, when you got a company that's growing at the rate that Boohoo is growing, I mean, you look at the growth, it's fantastic. Something like this is just going to be a little blip in the terms of long term when you look at Boohoo's future. And I think this is one of the investments that you'll look back on in a year's time. I think, you know, I might be doing one of my stock market portfolio reviews in December, and I'll be looking back on this company and going, wow, what a good purchase that was. It's going to be one of those, in my opinion. You know, just like how we had the COVID-19 pandemic, and you know, you look back at that, you know, and that was only 3 months ago. Now, when you look, wow, that was some good purchases that you got in them dips. And it's one of those, you know, you got to be a bit greedy when other people are fearful. That's always my saying, and there's definitely quite a few fearful people out there. And this is when I get greedy and start spending the cash. You know, I don't buy at highs, and this is where I go in, and this is where you have the chance to make, you know, 100% return within 2 years. And how many other investments do you get 100% return in 2 years? Not many. So it's a very easy buy for me at these hot prices, and you know, I do think it won't go below 200. You never know, it might do, but I just generally don't think it will. If it does, same again, I'll just average into the company as well and get that average in price down in my investment. So overall, that's my opinion on Boohoo today, guys. I hope I answered a few of your questions that were, you know, coming up in the comment section. You know, make sure you got that cash. Don't buy all at once. Average in and think about. Don't get caught in the short term. Don't look at your portfolio. Just think 2 years down the line, what is the company going to be worth, and you should be okay. For me, this company, a great company, one of the rare companies where we have a clean balance sheet and growth that is in the UK. We don't have many of them out there. To get this sort of prices of, you know, £2 is absolutely insane. You know, it was only £4 only 2 weeks ago. So for me, absolutely bargain prices. And when you think the problem is something to do not even with the company, it's a supplier, this is easy money for me, guys, in my opinion. And like I say, I think even at Christmas time, I think we'll look back on this, and I think some of us might be up 50%, maybe even 75%. I mean, if we are up 100%, that'll be absolutely crazy. But you know, I'm not trying to get caught too up like in the future, but I generally think in a few months' time, a lot of this will be blown over, and I think the stock price will start coming back. And I think this is an easy money stock, in my opinion, guys. So I hope I helped you with some of you guys and some of your questions overall. As always, if you can like the video, that'd be absolutely amazing. Subscribe if you haven't. I'll try to do the house builder video that I was supposed to do on Thursday now. So hopefully I'll get that out there. And as always, guys, I'll see you on the next video.